No, telly bringing you good news, owing to the fact that the government's borrowing has halved year on year, with headroom of about £20 billion. This means we could be looking at some significant tax cuts in the budget in March this year. Nonetheless, we all know that debt to GDP is still high and interest payments are one of the largest items in the budget, so there's not an enormous amount of room, whatever you think of it. But the Prime Minister has been right, surely, to adopt fiscal responsibility. It was one of his 5 pledges to reduce the debt. And this December, the deficit, bear in mind, the deficit is annual. The debt is the total stock of debt built up over decades, indeed centuries. But the deficit was more than £16 billion lower than the Office Budget Responsibility predicted. Incompetent, as always, the OBR. So I'm joined now by my distinguished panel, former barrister, current barrister and former Tory MP Jerry Hayes, and the author and broadcaster Michael Crick. So, Michael, tax cuts. Whoopee.
Bribes.
Bribes.
Yes, I mean, a constitutional expert like you will know, of course, that it's illegal to bribe the voters.
Yes.
And it's illegal, and indeed the legislation was strengthened not that long ago. The bribery legislation was strengthened, and that's what we're talking about here, the possibility that Jeremy Hunt will come out and bribe the electors. But the electors are not fools. They'll know what's happening, and they'll know full well, as has often happened in the past, that in the very unlikely event the Conservatives are returned at the election, there'll be a pretty quick budget straight away after, and new taxes will be imposed, as happened in 1992.
And indeed in 1954, I think, when the tax was cut by Rab Butler immediately before the election and then put straight back up afterwards. And this has happened, yes. But you can't bribe people with their own money, can you? Just technically.
Yes, well, you can.
Yes. With their own money.
No, for heaven's sake, I'm a barrister. It costs you 100 guineas.
Yes, but that's not... paying you your fee is not bribing you.
No, it's not. But never mind. Go back to him.
No, I'm quite interested in your view. Do you want to see tax cuts coming through? Do you think this means we
tax cuts which do not result in inflation? Too much money, taking too few goods, too many... You know the thing.
Yes.
But the problem we've got at the moment is that this government is obsessed with tax cuts. If it increases growth, then we're all in favour of it. But if it's chasing inflation, it's utter madness.
Any government that has tax at the highest level for 70 years be looking for tax cuts? Of course. Doesn't this have to go hand in hand?
Of course.
To the point I was making earlier about Sunak's fiscal responsibility, cutting the size of the state, not spending too much money.
This is what Tories believe in. We actually believe in tax cuts. Labour doesn't. We are doing our best to reduce taxes. All very well and good. But we can't increase inflation. Now, what we should do is look at stamp duty. Stamp duty is something no one ever talks about, but it is opposition to people buying their own homes.
Actually, I have talked about it and written articles on stamp duty.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
It's the most efficient tax.
But we cannot have inflationary tax.
What would you call an inflation? Michael, what would you call an inflationary tax?
There. You're sitting there talking about tax cuts with no recognition of the fact that dozens, perhaps scores of councils, Conservative and Labour, are on the point of going bankrupt. Some already have.
Yeah.
Universities are on the point of going bankrupt. The criminal justice system is falling apart.
It's fallen apart.
Has fallen apart. There are all sorts of parts of the state where you will be cutting the size of the state simply by bankruptcy.
We should cut councils because there are a lot of useless councils that spend too much money.
I think actually councils are rather good at wasting money. Well, central government wastes money as well. But a lot of councils are rather good at husbanding their money. It's just that they've been squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and had more and more responsibilities thrust on them. And look at the social care system. It's falling apart. They can't afford to pay people a decent rate to recruit enough people. That's the sort of thing we should be talking about, not bribes for voters.
Pause there. Bribes for voters is not bribes for voters. Voters want to feel better. They want to have more money in their pockets, which is really important.
They want confidence that their parents will be looked after in social care.
But how do we do it? And that's the problem for the government. Do we put money in their pockets by income tax? Ridiculous. Absolutely insane. Do we do it with VAT? Well, of course you can't. At the end of the day, how does the government actually do it?
I think this is all an attempt. Now, the Conservatives know that they're finished. And they're going into opposition. And this is an attempt by Jeremy Hunt and Rishi Sunak and the High Command to lay waste parts of the public sector by giving out tax cuts, putting Labour on the spot. And when they come into power and posing the question, will Labour reverse those tax cuts, and making it harder for Labour to deal with the problems?
You don't really believe that for a moment. You don't believe that people go into politics to have a scorched earth strategy. You certainly accept that politicians may make mistakes, but you're massively overstating, Michael.
You have now revealed yourself in the last 12 months or so as a believer in electoral tricks. And this is one of those electoral tricks whereby you're doing something to put your opposition on the spot.
I revealed myself as not liking electoral tricks because they don't work.
You were all in favour of you came out and revealed you were in favour of that, of the legislation introducing IDs at elections.
I said exactly the reverse. I said I wasn't in favour of it because I thought it was an electoral trick that wouldn't work.
Well, in that
which
case,
is exactly what it turned out to be.
I stand corrected,
but I withdraw what I've just said. I was in government at the time, so I was bound by collective responsibility.
That's what was going on. Yes, that's what
every government has bribed or tried to bribe people with tax cuts.
It's wrong. I'm going to end the conversation there by saying you can't bribe people with their own money. It's just logically inconsistent. But